Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today for our Hacks for Creating a Healthy Kitchen webinar. We're excited to share some really helpful practical advice and strategies that you can use to make your kitchen a happier, healthier space and make eating well easier. So to kick things off with quick intros, I'm Chef Lisa with Zipongo and I work in culinary development for our company. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Zipongo, we're a digital nutrition platform whose goal is to make eating well simple. And all of you listening today have access to our tools through your employer. Joining me as our featured speaker is Elle Penner, a registered dietitian and busy mom to 2 toddlers who has some great tips and tricks to help set you and your kitchen up for success. And as we go through the topics today, please feel free to share any questions via the chat feature, and we'll answer as many as we can during the Q&A section at the end. With that, I'll hand things over to you, Elle.
Thanks, Lisa, and thanks everyone for being here. Today we're discussing one of my favorite topics, how to transform a cluttered, disorganized kitchen into a space you not only enjoy being in, but that also supports your healthy eating efforts. From countertop clutter to poorly stocked pantries, the kitchen has more impact on your health than you might think. In this webinar, Chef Lisa and I will share how kitchen clutter might actually be holding you back from achieving a healthier diet and healthier you. We'll give you a 5-step plan to achieve a decluttered, organized kitchen. And we'll also give you a list of our essential kitchen tools for healthy cooking, including a few of our personal favorites and some of our favorite healthy kitchen staples and how we use them for our own families. So let's get the dirty work out of the way and tackle kitchen clutter first. If your kitchen is at all like mine, it's a popular congregating area in the home. It's not only where we prepare our meals and greet family members for breakfast, it's where we drop our mail, keys, backpacks, handbags, phones, you name it, the moment we walk in the door. I think we can all agree we don't like looking at clutter. But have you ever thought about how clutter makes you feel? Some scientists at UCLA did, and they studied it. And they found that clutter in the home correlates with stress and elevated stress hormones, especially in women. So to boil it down, more clutter equals more stress.
I couldn't agree more. I'm a much more productive person when the space around me is tidy and organized. I just can't focus with all that clutter.
I agree. I often say I feel how my kitchen or house looks. If my house is a mess, I probably am a mess. So there's no way to completely avoid stress, and actually a little bit of stress can be a good thing once in a while. But moderate to high levels of stress can have some real negative effects on our bodies, mood, and behaviors. In the body, too much stress can lead to elevated blood pressure, fatigue, stomach upset, and poor sleep, which we know affects hunger and hormones and food decisions. It can lead to increased anxiety and overwhelm, sadness, depression, and irritability. And stress also affects our behavior, particularly eating behaviors, and can often lead to undereating or stress eating or overeating. Stress can also lead us to exercise less often. So if we sleep less, we have less energy to work out. It all just kind of bleeds.
Snowball effect.
Yeah, snowballs one into the other. And it can influence us to turn to alcohol, drugs, or tobacco, and even withdraw from friends and family.
Yeah, I find that when I'm stressed out, it's hard for me to focus on doing anything really well. My mind is just always going back to the source of the stress and how to get rid of it.
I agree, Lisa. So the point of me telling you all this is that clutter-free spaces can likely help reduce the stress in your life. If this inspires you to start decluttering a little bit, here are a few good reasons you should start in the kitchen. First, you will be less likely to stress eat. You will have lower stress levels and may have a bit more energy and excitement to prepare healthy foods at home. Decluttering and organizing gives you the opportunity to make nutritious foods more visible and easier to access, and put those less nutritious foods in more inconvenient places. Your kitchen will become a more functional and enjoyable space, and you are left with fewer and better food decisions to make. Now, Chef Lisa and I are going to walk you through 5 steps to create a clutter-free kitchen. Step number 1 is clear the countertops. The countertops are a great place to start because they're a quick win, and they can have a huge impact. The first thing you need to do is find a home for everything. So most importantly, things that don't typically belong in the kitchen, like keys, mail, bills, electronics, things that get dumped on the counter. Then you want to look around and put in frequently used kitchen tools and small appliances in cabinets, or on a shelf in the pantry or in a closet. Whatever you don't use on a pretty much daily basis, try and find a different home for it that's not on the counter. So once you've found a home for everything, maintaining clutter-free counters should be quick and easy. Just spend 1 minute, 2 or 3 times a day, putting things away where they belong in their homes.
Yeah, and so if we're talking about a quick win, I just recently bought this small wire basket that has suction cups to put inside on the wall of my sink, and it just makes me so happy every day. I can corral my sponges and dish brushes there, so they stay out of the dirty water and all the leftovers that I'm putting down the garbage disposal, and then they can air dry between uses. And I also have a small tray that I put behind the sink to keep my hand and dish soap in one space, and it just creates a zen space for me to keep everything clean in the sink.
I have one of those wire baskets in my sink too, and It's definitely great. We have a bottle brush, a dish brush, and
everything.
Sponges, so it's just a great way to keep that all organized. 2 things that I've done in our kitchen space recently. I hung a few hanging file boxes in our entryway to our kitchen for stashing those papers and bills, things that would normally end up on the kitchen island that I intend to deal with the next day or within a day or 2, but sometimes things just take longer to sort through. So that's definitely helped keep those kinds of things off of our countertops. And I also recently got rid of my clunky dish rack. So I found that just laying out a clean dish towel as I do dishes, first of all, it makes me put dishes away sooner for some reason. I just don't try and stack them and create a giant tower of clean dishes. But it also frees up a lot of counter space once those dishes are put away. That makes cooking easier and more enjoyable.
So that's definitely a clutter goal of mine now that you've said that. I've got one of those clunky dish racks right now.
So step number 2 is purge the pantry and fridge. When you go into purge, tackle one zone at a time. So think of the fridge as a zone, your freezer as another zone, and even divide your pantry or, where you keep your canned and dry goods cabinets. Divide those up into 2 or 3 different zones. Take 20 minutes to 30 minutes, set a timer. Grab a cardboard box for food donations, a trash can for things that have to go, compost and recycling bins, and just start sorting. Toss or donate food that's expired or gone bad, food you and your family are unlikely to eat. So something that I think of is we get samples of, Korean rice in some order that we placed, and, things that we don't actually eat, or try and use them up. You can also donate or toss foods that aren't serving your health goals. So foods that maybe you feel like you binge on or stress eat, highly processed foods, things with long ingredient lists, refined grains, added sugars, foods that don't serve your health goals. But, keep in mind that we want to work towards progress and not perfection. So make sure to leave some of the foods you enjoy eating most, regardless of the nutrition label.
Yeah, I'm a big bulk food shopper for things like grains, beans, and seeds and nuts. So when I pull everything out of my pantry, there's always those little bags of bits and bobbles that I haven't finished up. And so I find that if I can put them in a clear container, even a mason jar or a plastic bin where I can see what's happening, I'm more apt to use them up, and I'll pull those seeds out and throw them in a granola. It just makes it easier for me to use up things if I can see them.
Yeah, it's a great tip. We struggle with the same thing in our pantry, so maybe I'll try that. So with a decluttered fridge and pantry, it's easier to get organized, which is step number 3. Maintaining an organized space makes it quick and easy to see what you have and what you need. The best way to organize your cabinets, pantry, fridge, and freezer is by grouping similar foods together. So Pinterest may disagree, but you don't necessarily need bins. Shelf dividers might actually be more functional. But if you are a bin person, clear plastic bins are really helpful in maintaining your newly organized space because you can see what's in them. I think a lot of times with, opaque bins, things get lost and you just don't realize what you have. So obviously you can organize your kitchen however it makes the most sense to you. But here's just an example of how I organize our pantry. So I keep our grains in one bin, canned beans and fish in another section. I keep our breakfast cereals together, cold and hot, like oatmeal. Oils and vinegars are all together. Then I keep our baking ingredients, flours, baking soda, chocolate chips, those kinds of ingredients together. I have another section for nuts and seeds that we use specifically in cooking and baking. And then I have another bin with bars and snacks, trail mix, nuts that we snack on so that are salted. And then I also have recently started doing bins for cuisine-specific ingredients. So I keep all of our Mexican-inspired ingredients like jarred salsa, jalapenos, enchilada sauce together, and then Asian sauces and noodles are another bin that we have. For our fridge, I keep the eggs and yogurt in our top left section. Leftovers are generally at eye level in clear containers, so they don't get lost. And then I also kind of keep our prepped ingredients, so meat and veggies, on the bottom of the fridge. For our freezer, again, your freezer is definitely going to look different, but I stash baby food and quick kids meals in our top left section. The top right is frozen fruits and veggies for quick add-ins for smoothies and just quick dinners. Bottom left, I tend to keep our breakfast items, so frozen veggie sausages, little breakfast burritos that I've made, smoothie packets. And then our bottom right is generally for lunch and dinner items like the soups and stews, frozen pesto, frozen chicken breast, fish, etc.
Yeah, mine is similar. So on the pantry front, I have everything grouped according to, I call it sweet or savory, so baking items together, and then just standard pantry items. And one of the things that's really helped change my life is I put the lunchbox snacks that I pack for my children up on the top, away from where they can reach. And it just keeps them from snacking after school all afternoon so that they eat the healthy food that I make. And it helps so that I actually have food to put in their lunchbox. So that was great. And then in the fridge, I always keep my meats separate and on the bottom of the fridge to keep any drips from contaminating anything else. I also think it's great to invest in a few smaller quarter-size baking sheets so you can keep your chicken, shrimp, or fish on there. They fit easily into most fridges, and they contain any leaks so that it's easier to clean up if you have to.
Yeah, that's a great tip. I really dislike having to pull everything out of my fridge because chicken breast has leaked all over. And that's a great tip about your kids' snacks. My toddler just recently discovered that he can climb a stool and reach his snack bar. So I will be moving those higher as well. So while you're organizing, make note of the staples you're missing, which brings us to step number 4, restock with whole foods. Having an organized, well-stocked pantry is essential to making healthy eating and cooking at home easier. Some good whole foods to have on hand are whole grains like oats and quinoa and whole wheat pasta, canned beans, tuna and salmon for protein, frozen fruits like berries for smoothies, and frozen veggies for adding to pasta or quick stir fries.
Yeah, I totally agree with this one. So, even though I'm a trained chef, there's still nights where I get home and I know I've got to get creative with dinner. So if I have a solid pantry, I know that I can have healthy building blocks and work on those to make something. And in the freezer, I love those individually wrapped frozen chicken breasts or the fish fillets because they thaw really quickly in a bowl of cold water while I'm making some farro or opening up a can of beans to put together a quick bowl for my kids, add some roasted veggies, and I've got a really great dinner.
Yeah, it sounds great. I'll be coming over for dinner. So now that your counters are clear and you have an organized, fully stocked pantry and fridge, the last step to a healthy, clutter-free kitchen is to optimize your cooking environment. Optimizing your cooking environment will make cooking easier, faster, and more enjoyable. But what are we talking about when we say optimize your cooking environment? So the first thing you want to do is declutter your drawers and cabinets. So like we started with the countertops, now you want to open up those drawers and get rid of unnecessary kitchen gadgets, tools you haven't used in a long time, multiples of anything. I don't know about you, Lisa, but I recently just realized I had 8 oven mitts and 3 can openers.
Yeah, and I do too, and I don't even use oven mitts, so I need to donate all of those.
Extra coffee mugs, water bottles. Our family collects water bottles like you wouldn't believe. So things like that you don't actually use or need. Get rid of extra items, donate them, sell them, use them for camping.
Yeah, that's what we like to do. We bring them down to our camping bin, and then we always have a can opener, extra water bottles. You always need that kind of stuff when you're out in the wilderness.
That's great. So as a little tip, if you're unsure of something, you think you might need it, like that second or third can opener, just put it out of sight in a box or bag in the garage or a closet for a few months, and then donate or sell what you don't actually reclaim in a month or two. Then after doing the drawers and cabinets, you want to reorganize them for efficiency and ease of use. So you want to group like items together, like keep your pots and pans together, your baking pans, cutting boards, and then you want to also keep frequently used items within reach. So skillets and saucepans, your chopping knives, cutting boards, spatulas and wooden spoons, and also your seasonings. So I have a little dish of kosher salt that I use, along with a pepper grinder and olive oil for quick and easy seasoning when I'm cooking. So as a reminder, this doesn't need to be done in a day. Maybe focus on one drawer a week for a few months. But the idea is that you kind of work your way through your entire kitchen, pare down your tools, reduce the clutter, and move things around so that your kitchen is more functional.
Yeah, I like to either hide or donate what we call in our house a unitasker. So, you don't need that special strawberry huller. You can just use a paring knife to do that. So I like to either, like I said, donate or put those in a drawer where it's not quite as accessible in my kitchen. And I have 2 countertop utensil holders that hold all my favorite tools like spatulas, whisks, and microplanes. The stuff that I just grab for almost every day. And just like you, I've got a little tray for my olive oil and salt and pepper next to the stove for seasoning, and then these really great little wooden bowls where I keep, if I've used half a lemon, I'll keep the other half there so that it's right there for me to squeeze onto something if it needs some extra flavor.
It's a great tip. I like that. And lastly, you want to make sure you have the right tools, because the right tools can make a world of difference, which brings us to our next section. Essential kitchen tools and shortcuts. We all know one of the best things you can do for your health is to start cooking. Having the right arsenal of tools will make meals easier and faster to put together. Chef Lisa and I have pulled together our top tools and gadgets to make prepping healthy meals as easy and convenient as possible. So things like quality knives, cutting boards, mixing bowls with lids so you can use them for food storage. You get the idea. These are all things that we recommend for just your general setup in the kitchen.
Just the basics.
In addition to these, Chef Lisa and I have a couple other items and tools and shortcuts that we lean on heavily in the kitchen.
Yeah, so one of my favorites is a bench scraper. It's traditionally used by pastry chefs, but I have it on my countertop all the time. I use it to scrape up chopped herbs and diced vegetables from my cutting board. It makes it easy to transport them right into my saute pan or into any soup or whatever I'm making on the stovetop. And it also helps with cleaning up. So we have pizza every Friday night, and I always have flour all over the counter, and the bench scraper scrapes up all that flour so it doesn't turn into a gummy mess while you're trying to wipe it down with a sponge. Second thing is my garlic press. It's just so much easier than chopping. It's contained. I can just press it right over whatever I'm cooking, and it keeps my cutting board from getting that garlic smell that's really, really hard to get rid of. Also keeps my hands from smelling and getting sticky too. And then baking sheets. I talked about it, about organizing in the fridge a couple minutes ago, but I use these for everything. From a breading station for chicken cutlets, I'll put flour in one, and then my breadcrumbs in one and milk in another, and so it makes it really easy. There's lots of surface area. Again, holding raw meats and poultry in the fridge. I use it to let cooked meats that come out of my oven. I let them rest on the baking sheet so it collects any juices. And we make a ton of stir fries, so I'll always have it next to my wok for the quick in and out of doing different veggies and proteins. It's just a total workhorse in my kitchen.
Yeah, I second all of those. I have all of those tools, and I use them every week as well. Especially the garlic press. I didn't have a garlic press for so long and just recently got one, and it's definitely changed my life. I feel like garlic you use in everything you cook.
Absolutely.
It just saves a lot of time. So my top three, I'd say, are a quality knife. Whether you like a Santoku knife, which is my personal preference, a smaller 5-inch I find very approachable and easy to use, or a more traditional chef's knife, which has a curved edge. Just choosing one quality knife will be the workhorse of your kitchen. It just makes chopping a lot safer and easier.
Absolutely, yeah. You'll find that you can get 80% of what you need done with just a chef's knife.
Yeah, exactly. Another of my top tools is my food processor. I use our food processor at least once a week, whether I'm making pesto or cauliflower rice. Ours even has a dicing attachment, and so I can dice a whole bag of carrots, 2 onions, and a bunch of celery for soup or stew in about 3 minutes.
That's amazing. I need to get myself one of those dicing blades.
It's great. But I started off with a really small food processor and one that was actually also a blender. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't need to be big and fancy. It can be, small, and they still get the job done. And my last tool is another kind of trendy item. It's the Instant Pot. I have, there are recipes all over the internet for this. It's kind of a thing. But I use our Instant Pot at least weekly for cooking whole grains like brown rice in half the time. It makes a great risotto without any stirring. We do a lot of pulled chicken and beef for veggie bowls or burrito bowls. It makes a perfect pork tenderloin in 2 minutes.
That's amazing.
And also I do a great quick apple chutney for the pork tenderloin.
Yeah, I just recently got an Instant Pot too, and it's really, really wonderful for making those Instagrammable jammy eggs that everyone loves. Put a dozen eggs in there, 6 minutes, you've got these perfect, beautiful eggs. So those are all great tools in the kitchen.
I'll have to try the eggs.
Yeah, it's a game changer.
Awesome. So to wrap things up, Chef Lisa and I wanted to leave you with some simple ideas and inspiration to get cooking in your new, healthy, uncluttered kitchen. So Lisa, since we just shared our favorite kitchen tools and shortcuts, why don't we give our top 3 healthy food staples and what we make with them?
Let's do it.
Okay, so my top 3 in no particular order are canned beans, so especially black beans. I use these in everything from soups and stews to chili. I also, when we have nacho night or quesadilla night, I will make an easy black bean dip with just a can of black beans, a can of green chilies, simmer that, hit it with the immersion blender, and then add a little Greek yogurt at the end. And it's a great nutritious dip for, like I said, nachos and quesadillas.
I'm definitely going to take that one.
3-ingredient bean dip. It's delicious. I'd say another one of our staples are frozen peas. So peas are a great source of plant-based protein. They're also a very kid-friendly veggie that are very approachable for a lot of kids. I use frozen peas to make mint pea pesto and put that either over risotto rice, like from the Instant Pot, or just plain pasta, which our kids love. Noodles with pesto is a great dinner. I also use frozen peas in fried rice and even put them in quesadillas along with those canned beans. And I'd say our third staple item would be old-fashioned oats. I recently started doing overnight oats, so I'll soak them in milk overnight to add a little extra protein and fat with a little bit of brown sugar, and then just whip it out of the fridge and throw it in the pan in the morning, and it cooks in about 3 or 4 minutes. Everyone gets oatmeal and they love it. It's nice and hot and hearty. I also make a simple homemade granola. It takes about 30 minutes, start to finish. It cooks for about 25 minutes, and it tastes better and costs less than the store-bought. And then I'll also grind up old-fashioned oats and use it as oat flour in muffins and breads in place of like a white whole wheat or a whole wheat flour.
Yeah, I definitely work with all of those items. And then for some of my favorites, I really love miso and tahini. I'm a big believer in having just a couple squeeze bottles of different kinds of sauces in the fridge because it adds a great punch of flavor and some focus to all these other staples that you have. So I'll add at least one or sometimes even both of them to these dressings that I make. It gives a great umami flavor, and it also thickens up a dressing without having to add extra oil. And then I like to use cheese as a condiment in lots of foods that I make. So crumbled or shredded cheeses like feta and Parmesan, just a little bit, give a dish a nice salty umami finish without adding any additional salt. So I like to reach for those. We put feta in burritos, we put it in rice bowls. We can really use it in all kinds of different preparations. And then lastly, frozen cooked greens. We use multiple bags of these every week. We have frozen chopped kale and spinach, and they get tossed into smoothies for breakfast. I will thaw them and fold them into cooked grains for lunch and dinner. And then on the weekends, I like to make a big batch of mini frittatas, and I put either the kale or the spinach in there, and with that feta or Parmesan cheese, and then I bake them in muffin tins to freeze, and then we can quickly defrost them during the week. So those frozen cooked greens, they show up everywhere.
I love them. I would never think to cook them before you freeze them, but that is a great way to use them up, especially if you have a bunch of kale in the fridge that's wilting and you don't want to let it go to waste.
Yeah, and you can buy them bagged too, which is great. And then all the moisture is already cooked out, so it's easy to put in anything.
Great. I know we covered a lot today, but we wanted to just wrap up with a quick summary and a few of today's takeaways. So we talked about first that clutter causes stress and can directly affect your body, your mood, and behavior. And a cluttered kitchen could actually be holding you back health-wise. The benefits of a clutter-free kitchen include less stress eating, more energy and excitement to cook, nutritious foods become more visible and easier to access, your kitchen is just a more functional and enjoyable space, and you have fewer and better food decisions. Then we talked about the 5 steps to creating a healthy clutter-free kitchen. So step number 1 was to clear the countertops, find a permanent home for everything that makes its way into the kitchen, especially items that don't belong there, like mail and keys. Step number 2 was to purge your pantry and fridge, so just clearing through the food clutter. Step number 3 was to get organized, so using bins or dividers and grouping similar foods or cuisines in your pantry and fridge. Step number 4 was to restock with whole foods, so foods like whole grains, canned beans and fish, frozen vegetables and fruits, things like that. And then step number 5 was to optimize your cooking environment. So going through drawers one by one, getting rid of, extra tools and gadgets that you don't use, and also just reorganizing your kitchen so that it's more efficient and better organized for your use. We've had a lot of fun talking about our favorite kitchen organization tricks, tools, and staples today. Hopefully we've given you all some easy, actionable tips to help you create a kitchen that makes healthy cooking and eating easier and more enjoyable.
Awesome, thanks, Elle. And as a reminder, Elle is hanging out to answer any questions you might have. Just submit them using the chat feature on your GoToWebinar. In the meantime, I'd love to share some of the tools Zipongo offers that make it easy to turn many of these healthy behaviors into healthy habits. First, we have a nearly limitless supply of tasty, healthy recipes that can be filtered by your dietary preferences and restrictions. There's tons of options to choose from, including categories like 30-minute meals or less, one-pot meals, make-ahead dishes, freezer-friendly, and 7 or fewer ingredients. Zipongo also takes the work out of meal planning with custom meal plans. Simply take a few minutes to tell us about your food preferences, and we'll generate a meal plan that's perfectly yours. See something you don't like or takes longer than you have available to cook? Just hit the swap icon and pick an alternative meal. And once you've got that meal plan or found a few recipes that look good to you, you can add them all to a single Zipongo grocery list. Then that list can be shared with others to help you shop or sent over to Instacart for quick deliveries. And we also have apps for both iPhone and Android, which lets you access all of these tools on the go. So with the time that's left, let's answer a few questions that have come in. So Elle, first question is fielded for you. As a family of 5, we're always struggling to make room and find what we're looking for in the fridge and freezer. Do you have any tips for maximizing that space?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have a family of 4 and struggle with the same thing. So 2 things that I've started doing that have made a big difference are chopping our fresh fruits and veggies right when I get them home from the store. So this way they don't end up in the produce bin. They take up a lot less space when they're all chopped up and ready to go. Another benefit of this is it cuts down on prep time during the week, and it just still saves a lot of space and prevents those drawers from getting overly full and damaging your produce. For the freezer, I've started laying liquids like soups and stews or pesto sauce leftover. I lay it flat in a freezer bag on a baking sheet and stick it in the freezer, and this way they're really neat and compact and you can stack them a lot easier, as opposed to dropping it in the freezer and having a big blob of something at the bottom of the freezer. Lisa, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, so in my house, I try to adhere to the rule of first in, first out. So whatever I've purchased first needs to be used before I add more ingredients, so that way I can get a better sense of what I have, and things don't end up going down to the bottom of the abyss of the freezer and I can never find it again.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We do something similar in our house. We have a freezer week every so often, so I'll plan an entire week's worth of meals just based on what we have in the freezer. So leftover soups and stews, whatever, frozen chicken and veggies in the stir fry. Frozen bananas, those seem to accumulate.
Oh, yeah, they're everywhere.
So I'll bake a bunch of banana bread and either, give it to friends or freeze those individually. And also just putting, frozen veggie burgers on a salad or having frozen pizza night.
Awesome. Those are great tips. Okay, so the next question we have is, how do you cut down on waste and trash in your kitchen? I can start with this one because we just recently did a big purge and purchased some great items. So we got these really beautiful different colored glass straws. Since we have smoothies every morning, we were using plastic straws. That's 4 plastic straws every day. And with these, the kids get excited about the different colors and we're not throwing away a bunch of straws. We also got some of that beeswax paper. And so I wrapped the kids' sandwiches and burritos in that for lunches during the day and invested in these little washable muslin cloth bags. And so that way we can put either snacking nuts or trail mix or, pirate's booty or pretzels in those instead of putting them in Ziploc bags, and then they can just easily be thrown in the wash.
Yeah, those are great. We use 2 of those also. We have stainless steel straws instead of glass, but same idea. With 2 toddlers, they're not ready for glass yet.
Yeah, so they said that these were unbreakable, but my daughter did manage to break one.
Oh, you should get your money back.
Yeah.
And we also use those reusable cloth snack bags for packing our kids' snacks. And you're right, throw them in the dishwasher inside out, and they're great. Another thing I recently started doing to reduce our waste is I cook a lot of soups and stews, just because they're really little kid friendly, and they're a great way to get veggies in our kids. But every week I was going through 3 or 4 quarts of chicken broth or veggie broth for those soups and stews, and every one of those Tetra Pak containers aren't recyclable, so they just end up going into the trash. So I recently discovered that Costco has a large jar of like chicken base or veggie base, Better Than Bouillon is the brand, I think.
I love those.
So I've started using that to make our own broth. It takes maybe 1 extra minute, and it makes a big difference in our trash. So that's another way I've cut back.
Yeah, and with those too, you can make either as little or as much broth as you want. So if you only need a cup of broth to finish
you're not opening a whole can or a whole quart.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's all we have time for today. Thanks, Elle. This has been really fun, and thank you everyone for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day.